Hello pilots, welcome to Hawken Game Modes, Part 2. Team Deathmatch, or TDM for short, is Hawken's standard game mode, and also the first type of match you're going to play when you start playing the game. TDM servers range from the regular 12-player servers over 14-player ones up to the infamous Mayhem servers, which hold up to 24 players. Most of the advice given in this video is based on matches on 12-player servers, as those are the most common, those are what the game is balanced for, and they are also the ones I have the most experience with. A lot of things do apply to matches on larger servers as well, but they are just generally more chaotic if nothing else. Now, team deathmatches are what it says on the tin. Deathmatches held out in teams. Before the game starts, players get split into the two teams Prosk and Sentium, which lore-wise, and yes, this game actually does have some lore to it, represent the two biggest of the remaining corporations on Ilal, the planet on which Hawken is set, struggling for supremacy over what's left after the eponymous Hawken virus broke out. These two teams ideally consist of 6 players each, and the game's auto-balancer will decide which side you are on. If there is an uneven number of players in a lobby, the auto-balancer will also try to make, for example, a 3 versus 4 game balanced by putting players with a higher skill level on the team that is one man down. The quote-unquote skill level that the matchmaker and the auto-balancer use is a number called MMR, which stands for Matchmaker Rating. New recruits start out with an MMR of 1250, and that number is updated after every match you play. If you're on the lower end of your team's scoreboard, it will decrease by a small amount, and if you're on the upper end, it will increase by a small amount. However, those uneven matches are quite often unbalanced anyway. In that case, if you're on the team that has one more player, be a gentleman and offer to sit out until another player joins the other side. Now, the winner of the TDM is the team that gets the most kills by the end of the match, or reaches the maximum number of kills first, thus ending the game instantly. Unlike Deathmatch, which we covered in part 1, your individual score is not taken into account to determine the winning team. Only the number of kills counts. This has a couple of implications, one of them being that if you're low on armor, rather than dealing that extra bit of damage with your last breath, as you would sometimes do in a deathmatch, consider running away. That is, if you think you can make it, and then repair and rejoin your team with full armor. That way you keep the enemy team from scoring another point, which is just as important as scoring points yourself. And this is already one essential guideline to keep in mind, since especially new players often think, or seem to think, that the opposite is true. Staying alive helps your team just as much, if not even more, than killing other players. Because if you aren't careful and sacrifice your own life to go for that single kill, you didn't help your team in any way. Another implication is that even the player with the highest score can still lose the match, if he or she is not watching the team's back. And this is what TDM is all about, working as a team. So what does it mean to be a good teammate? To quote another Hawken pilot here, "If your answer is anything but keeping my fellow pilots alive, you're wrong." And here's how we roll. First up, stay grouped. I see a lot of new players instantly spreading out all over the map as soon as the match has started. And if you're up against a team that is staying together, you will lose. That's what we call the classic death ball. A grouped up team basically rolling over the map, swallowing every enemy mech in their way. Because a single mech, even a C-class, simply cannot survive the combined firepower of an entire team long enough to achieve anything. This can only be countered by sticking together and moving together yourselves. Now, when those two grouped up teams meet, they will most likely hit each other at some kind of choke point, as open firefights without cover are not a smart thing to do. So in that situation, it is most vital to hold the front line. Keep skirmishing from a safe distance, and repair often and early. Mechs like the Grenadier, the Rocketeer, the Bruiser and the Incinerator, which you wouldn't necessarily use in a free-for-all deathmatch, especially start to shine here, as they are capable of laying down massive suppression fire, making it close to impossible for any enemy mech to come close to your team. Also, speaking of choke points, some maps have certain unique features that are worth taking into account for team deathmatches. For example, there is a giant bridge in the center of the Prosk map. This bridge is what you want to hold with your team, because it gives you cover, a height advantage, a perfect view over the rest of the map, and it is easy to defend. Most of the other maps have several points that can serve as a kind of base. Actually, Bunker is the only map without any choke point worth mentioning, though that only makes sticking together even more important, as cover is scarce and the only thing you can rely on is your team. Now, at some point you might see a wounded enemy below half health running away to repair. Do you go for it? Well, maybe. There are mechs like the Raider, specifically designed to hunt down retreating mechs, but that involves abandoning your position and potentially even running straight through your enemy's line of fire. So only do it if you think you can make it back safely, or your teammates are going to follow you, backing you up. Or perhaps it's better to wait for your sniper to take one of them out from the distance. Again, staying alive is more important than killing here. But it doesn't win you the match. Fortunately, Hawken's maps always have flank routes built in, which is where hit-and-run mechs like the Scout and the Infiltrator come in handy, as they are very efficient at sneaking past the enemy front line quickly, attacking them from behind, distracting them, and thus giving your team the opportunity to storm in with full force, catching the enemy with their pants down. Rinse and repeat. Of course, the other team will try to do the same, which is why it is of utter importance to communicate with your team as much as possible. Even without voice communication via TeamSpeak and the likes, you still have the help requested and enemy sighted shortcuts and the in-game chat. Obviously, you cannot discuss a detailed strategy through typing, but even small bits like retreat or stay here can mean the difference between victory and defeat. But you can aid your teammates even further. Help them directly by dropping them a repair charge when they're low on armor. Or if you see a wounded teammate chased by an opponent, throw yourself at the pursuer, shoot him with all you've got, EMP him, or drop a blockade in a tight corridor to stop him. If a friendly mech is repairing in a dangerous spot, guard that guy until he's done. Or help your team by adapting your mech choice to the composition of the rest. If you think your team could use a bit more meat, pick a C-class, even if that wasn't your initial plan. If you're constantly harassed from afar and your team is struggling to close the gap to the enemy, give them some cover by laying down long-range suppression fire with your own sharpshooter or rocketeer. If there is one or even more incinerators on your team, roll out your technician and tend to them. If there is a target worth assassinating on the enemy team, be it technician destroying all your efforts, or a particularly annoying Reaper or Sharpshooter camping in the back, hop into your Infiltrator, Berserker or whatever you like to use and take them out, and so on and so forth.
Mission success.
So this was it for the second part of Hawken game modes. As always, feel free to add me in-game, and if you liked this video, I would appreciate you leaving a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and see you on the battlefield.